Hello, welcome to week 8. This is the second half of module 4, observation and assessment. This week we will be diving into some more specific types of observation and how we utilize those assessments in more ways than just lesson planning, which is something we discussed in our Zoom class last week. But first we'll be talking about the difference between formal and informal observation. Make sure that you're pretty clear on the difference. The Zoomcast does go over, or the screencast does go over this, but I'll just touch it one more time. Formal observation is more like a tool that you would be using that's already given to you. If you're familiar with an eDeca screener, the EASY tool, maybe an ASQ, something that you might do with a child at the doctor's office, or maybe your center uses that as a screener. Those are more formal when you're sitting down and filling something out, checking yes or no, scoring, that kind of thing. Informal observation is more spontaneous. This is something that you might do in your classroom, like a quick little spot check checklist, or jotting down some anecdotal notes about an activity or something that you saw a child doing or not doing, and then inputting that in whatever program your school uses, whether that means you're just writing notes and using that for conferences, or we spoke about my teaching strategies last week in our Zoom class. So something like that. Be sure that you know the difference or the purpose behind choosing informal or formal assessment, and even the type of tool that you're using, and when to use each type of tool. We'll be doing some exploration of the observation tools and some practice with them during our class this week, but make sure that you're very familiar before class starts. We also use this data, so observation data, whether it's formal or informal, for things like lesson planning, which we did talk about, making sure that your lesson plan is relevant to the children in your classroom, making sure that it meets their individual goals and supports their developmental milestone progression. But there are some other reasons that we would do observation as well and use the assessment, such as creating a positive behavior support plan. If your school is on an MTSS program, you need tons and tons of data collection and documentation before you can put a child on a behavior support plan. And then once they're on the plan, you continue to observe and document and assess how it's working. You would also need this type of documentation and assessment to put a child on an IEP or an IFSP, so an individualized education plan for either a preschooler or an infant and toddler. And that would require both formal and informal observation from many people. Yourself, the teacher, the family, particularly professionals like the speech therapist or special educator, mental health, all of those people combined. Then we combine that information and create a legal document like an IEP or an IFSP. Those are the main points on assessment. As always, we'll discuss the content in our weekly Zoom, but let's get to homework. You have your second discussion post, and to complete an observation record, feel free to do that before class on Wednesday, and then if we have any questions, that would be a great time to ask them, or if you're not feeling super comfortable, we'll go over each type of assessment tool, and then you could do it after our class as well, or both, whatever. There's also a Check Your Knowledge quiz this week since we're at the end of Module 4. And then there's also something called the bibliography. It is a resource collection item that will go in your portfolio, but it is not due to me. It just doesn't really fit into our course in any time in any of the modules, but it is something that needs to be put in your portfolio. And this week is a sort of light week, so I would suggest getting started this week. It's available here in Canvas for Module 4, Part 2, and it basically asks you to provide 10 books with the bibliography. So the title, the author, that's about all you need. And it does ask for an image of the book. I would say that's optional. If you're just Googling books, grab an image of it, copy and paste, put it in there. If you're looking at books in person in the classroom, you could take a photo of the book and include it, but I would say it's not required. You need 10 books that relate to your age group, and just make sure that they relate to some sort of learning process. So we talked a lot about books for children who are having a new child born in their family. That would be something to learn. I love the Berenstain Bear books or the Little Critter books. There's always some sort of lesson in them. We don't want it to be something that's just silly, because in the bibliography it will ask you for like a summary of the book. Include what the lesson is. I would avoid books like, I don't even have an example. We always say Dr. Seuss, just silly language. As long as there's a lesson behind it, I would say that it's totally appropriate. And if you have any questions, of course, email me. This bibliography is not due. There's not an assignment portal for it in Canvas, but if you would like to email it to me for me to look over before you put it in your portfolio, I'm happy to do that as always. That's all for this week. I will see you on Wednesday for our Zoom. Have a great week and talk to you later.